Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Two Man Game. As always, I'm Cone, one of your hosts. I got my co-host here, Ryan, and free agency is fully underway. A lot has happened over the past 24 hours and some change. Both of our teams have done a lot of great stuff. Real quick before we get into that, leave a like and subscribe if you're over here on YouTube. If you're on the audio platforms, go ahead and download, rate 5 stars, and come over to YouTube so you can see the video version as well. What we're going to be doing today is grading every single free agency move, reacting to every deal, talking about what every team has done, or in some cases has not done so far, and just giving you our overall thoughts about 24 hours in. So to go ahead and kick things off, I'm going to kick it over to Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing? I figured you're doing pretty well with the way the Sixers have kind of orchestrated free agency.
I was doing some summer cleaning and came across a hidden gem in your closet.
There it is, the Paul George jersey, baby, the Thunder Paul George jersey. I got that the Christmas right before he left. Those jerseys are so clean. I need us to bring that one back.
But I vividly remember, I don't remember if it was the Paul George jersey or the Russell Westbrook jersey, but when the Thunder were doing their big fire sale, and I took you were pretty distraught, about it. And I took your jersey and hung it from the ceiling fan and said I was putting it in the rafters.
That was the Russell Westbrook one.
That was
we were about to. So my girlfriend was visiting. We met in college, so she lived up a little bit north of us. So she was visiting where we live for the summer for a few days, and we were going to Topgolf. And Russ got traded, and I was like, guys, we can go to Topgolf. I just kind of need a minute. So I was like, taking a second. I knew it was coming, so it wasn't like a big blindside. But then Ryan comes out. He's like, Connor, look what I did. And I go over there, and in my room is my Russell Westbrook jersey hanging from my ceiling fan because it got retired. But yeah, that was the Russ jersey.
But I'm doing pretty good, man. It's nice that the Sixers have not really had the financial flexibility to do a lot outside of trades in recent off seasons. And now, unlike some people like sleepy Pat Riley, Daryl Morey is wide awake and making a ton of moves and hopefully improving the team. And I'm really excited about a lot of the moves that we've made. Brought in a lot of familiar faces back and then some new faces. So I'm pretty pumped.
Daryl Morey loves his 2017 Rockets, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. That's for Andre Drummond must have been a 2017 Rocket too in another life.
Yeah. In some other timeline, he ends up there. But obviously, the big thing, the Sixers get Paul George, 4 years, $212 million. I was awake when the deal happened.
I was awake when it happened too. Actually,
Ryan woke up right as the trade happened. I texted him.
Well, real quick. So I woke up at like 3 a.m. because, you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, dang, I'm thirsty. I need to take a piss. The classic wake up in the middle of the night,
Yeah, the routine, of course.
So I wake up and I see Kelly Oubre got re-signed. So I was like, oh, shoot, that's awesome. So, I tweeted something about Kelly Oubre. I was catching up on some Twitter notifications about people's reaction to Drummond and some of the other news. And then, I kid you not, I know people can relate to this where you put on a YouTube video to fall asleep to or music, whatever you fall asleep to, right? Like you're going to set on your phone what you're going to listen to. You set your little timer so it turns off and doesn't play all night. I just found a YouTube video to listen to, and all of a sudden my phone and my watch start going crazy, and it just says, Paul George is official. Paul George is official. And Connor sends me a text in all caps and goes, he's here, or like something like that. And I literally was like, shoot, I have to be up in like 2.5 hours for work because I go into work at 6:30 in the morning. And now I got to tweet about Paul George. I got to see everyone's reactions to who's awake. So I was pretty pumped I was awake for it. I was also awake when we got Tobias Harris, which was also like a 3 a.m. trade. So I don't know why. Yeah. For some reason, I'm always awake when the Sixers make these crazy deals. But
bro, it's the same with Paul George. I don't know what it is because when he signed with us, it was after midnight. It was like around 1:30, almost 2 a.m. when we traded him to the Clippers, and now it's 3:30 when he signed. For some reason, any Paul George transaction must be done in like the latest hours of the night.
He's nocturnal, man,
on the East Coast, apparently, or just everybody who deals him. But yeah, initial thoughts on the deal. I want to get your opinion first, and I can go into my thoughts. I talked about a little bit in my YouTube video, but obviously, it's been a little bit more time, so I feel like we've got a better and clearer vision of what the Sixers are doing going forward.
Yeah, man, I'm pretty pumped. I know a lot of people are looking at the back end of the deal and saying, oh, you're going to be paying a 38-year-old Paul George a ton of money. But I was watching Kenny Beecham's recap video of the Paul George deal, which obviously, if you're watching this and you haven't heard of Kenny Beecham, I don't know what you're doing.
Shout out to Kenny.
I think he said it really well where it's kind of like baseball contracts, right? In the NBA, people don't really get signed for more than 3 or 4 years, sometimes 5. But in baseball, you see these contracts of 9 or 10 years. And clearly you're not paying someone to be good in their 9th or their 10th year. And I think that's kind of what the Sixers did with Paul George. They know that their window with Embiid is relatively short. Embiid's getting older. There's usually health issues, every year. So if you find a year where he's healthy, you need to capitalize on that. And I think they're really just paying the back half of the contract, to hopefully get the good play at the front half of the contract, because with all this money that they have and everyone's clowning the Sixers, saying that they just got a Tobias Harris with a better PR team. I've seen a lot of copium from Celtics and Heat fans talking about that's the comparison for Paul George and Tobias. Clearly have not watched a lot of Tobias Harris, by the way, if that's what you think. I don't think Paul George would put up 0 in the elimination game, but that's just me. But, oh, you're muted, bro.
I was going to say it'd be a funny full circle moment if he did.
And no, seriously though. And I guarantee you Tobias Harris puts up a good game against the Sixers this year. I'm marking that in my calendar right now where he puts it together. Sure. 100% he's going to have a good game. And I don't hate his signing with the Pistons, by the way, and we'll get to that when we get there. But I'm excited, man. I think Paul George, he can fit into that third fiddle role with the Sixers. He doesn't have to be the go-to guy. I feel like with Kawhi missing a lot of games and, Harden's, whether he's, trying to channel Rockets James Harden or like Sixers James Harden, where he was more of a playmaker, I feel like Paul George kind of had an undefined role a lot of the times with the Clippers, especially with a lot of moving parts there. So he's very clearly now the third fiddle there, and he can kind of play into his role. And I'm really excited, man. I think it's an impeccable fit between Embiid and Maxey. You now have, a top center, a top guard, and one of the top wings in the league. I don't care if he's getting older. Paul George is still, any team that would need a wing would be more than happy to have Paul George on their roster. So I'm pretty excited, man. I think it's a great fit. And everyone's saying that the Sixers just got another playoff choker, but who knows, man? Maybe when they band together that they'll finally they'll come together. But
it's like when you multiply negative by negative.
Exactly. But I just can't wait, man, because it really felt like a lot of last season it was like Kelly Oubre or Nick Batum was our third best player in a lot of really important games. And that's just not a recipe for success if you want to win, in the NBA. So I'm really excited, man. I think Paul George is going to be huge. And I think a lot of people that are calling the Sixers are going to hopefully be proved wrong about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the deal too. I'm not going to really take anything away from what you said. I think this is a great move for the Sixers. In my opinion, it's one they had to make. You can't pass up this opportunity. It's rare in the NBA where you have an MVP level player, an all-star rising all NBA level player, and you have this ability to add another all-star without giving up any assets.
Yep, no assets. Give it
That's the big thing to me as well. And a part of the reason why I love the Thunder grabbing Isaiah Hartenstein, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well. But they didn't have to give up any of their assets. Like, they still have really valuable first-round picks, including a Clippers pick that just became infinitely more valuable because they lost Paul George. And, of course, to the Thunder, like, I'm happy he left because the Thunder have 3 draft assets from them over the next 3 years.
Sixers also have a lot of their picks from the Harden trade. So
exactly.
So the benefits.
Yeah. So it's a double entendre for the Sixers where not only do they get Paul George, you've got better assets, plus with the new way that the luxury tax aprons work, when you're over the second apron, if you're paying a lot of money for a roster, basically, you can't put contracts together in a trade. So you can't combine like 2 players to equal the money of one guy. You can only send out 1 player, which is a big restriction. So Paul George's money, at the very least, say he starts to get bad, you can at least package some of those really good picks and maybe get an upgrade in the future. Paul George, just from a playing standpoint, I feel you what you said over there with him. It's better him being the third fiddle over there in Philadelphia. To me, he reached a point in his career where I don't really want PG to be my consistent everyday second option. Now over in Philly, it's Embiid at the top, and you can kind of Maxey and Paul George play off of each other. There's going to be some nights where Maxey's the clear number 2, some nights where Paul George is playing pretty well, and maybe he takes the spot, a real 2A, 2B there, with Maxey more often being the A than the B, I would imagine. And like a guard wing, big 3 is exactly what you want. The fit is seamless. PG doesn't need the ball in his hands. A phenomenal catch and shoot guy who can put the ball in the deck, create his own shot, which has been a problem the Sixers have had for a little while too. They haven't had a lot of guys that can create their own offense outside of Maxey and Embiid, specifically last year. There still is work to be done. They got to fill out the rest of the roster. They did a couple of moves. Andre Drummond back with the Sixers for 2 years, $10 million. He was one of the better backup bigs they've had in the Embiid era, so I like that deal too. People were complaining about it. They don't need him to play that many minutes in the playoffs. Embiid is going to be playing like 38 minutes. You need him to just be out there for like 10 and he'll be fine. Eric Gordon comes in. Again, we're talking about the Daryl Morey bringing a lot of old Rockets players. I like Eric Gordon as a pickup, though. You don't need him to do too much. Just literally spot it from 3. And he shot pretty well from 3 last year on a lot of attempts playing off of KD and Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. He's going to do the same thing over there in Philadelphia with probably a little bit of a smaller role, I would imagine. They've got Jared McCain, who I like a lot as a guard off the bench. Brought back Kelly Oubre. That's the big thing. So now they've got a starting lineup, theoretically, of Maxey, Kelly Oubre, Paul George, and someone there at the 4. That is the hole at the moment, unless they're picturing maybe Oubre at the 4, PG at the 3, and someone else at the 2. There's different routes they could go, but I mean, according to reports, they're still trying to get Lauri Markkanen. I don't know if that's possible, but it's something to keep an eye on. If they had Lauri, like suddenly that team is ridiculous.
Oh my God, yeah.
I would prefer if the Thunder got Lauri, I'm gonna be honest, but no, I think it's been a great start to the offseason for the Sixers. You have to take this chance. With the Celtics as good as they are, the Knicks adding Mikal Bridges and keeping OG Anunoby in town, like those two teams are stacked. Not to mention the Bucks, maybe they put it together. Like they're so good. Pacers are getting better. The East is improving rapidly. If you're Philadelphia, when you have an MVP guy and again a rising All-Star, All-NBA guard in Maxey, you can't just sit on your hands. I don't think filling this roster out with solid role players would have been enough. You've got to take a swing. There's injury concerns for sure with Paul George and Embiid as a duo, but you have to swing for the fences when you have the chance. If it doesn't work, it wasn't going to work in the first place. Like if Embiid doesn't stay healthy, you weren't going to win if you didn't bring Paul George.
That's why I hate everybody saying like, oh, well, what if Embiid gets hurt? I'm like, oh, if he gets hurt, they're not going to win anyway. So why does it matter? Yeah,
it was over from the get-go. Yeah. So if you lose Paul George for a little bit, like that definitely hurts as well. But you still got Max, you still have Embiid. It seems like you're building a decent supporting cast. And I'm hopeful that with a lesser role now for PG, he can stay more healthy. I mean, this past season, he played, I think, over 70 games. Played 74 games, so he only missed 8. It was a really healthy season for PG. So if we can get more of that, yeah, I like this deal. I think people clowning it are looking a bit too much into the money, especially when like guys are now getting routinely $60 million a year. We're going to start seeing guys get up into the 70s and 80s. I don't even think it's that crazy. Sure, 38 Paul George is probably not going to be worth $50 million. But like Brian said, you're paying him for what he's going to do now as opposed to the end of the deal. You've got to take advantage of while you have Embiid playing at this level. So I think it's a phenomenal move from the Sixers. I think they've been one of my biggest winners of the offseason so far.
100% agree, man. And a lot of work to be done, but I do think there's some people in the market that they can still pick up. You know, Kyle Lowry, maybe bring back a Cameron Payne to fill out the guard spot, try to find a wing on the trade market. I've seen a lot of rumors where the Sixers could, in theory, trade away Paul Reed, you know, and attach a pick maybe. They could bring in someone who makes double-digit millions of dollars.
Yeah, because that would open up an exception, I think, for them.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been throwing around like a Dorian Finney-Smith type of player, which I think would be pretty cool, or like another player of that mold. So I really think that's what the Sixers end up doing. I think they look to the trade market to try to fill out that last wing spot, and it's going to be Paul Reed and probably a pick. And I think we pick up somebody, not necessarily like Dorian Finney-Smith, like not him in particular, but some other type of player of that mold that doesn't, like you were saying, doesn't need the ball in their hands, but can play defense and, you know, play off the good guys.
I don't know if he's attainable. I would love Cam Johnson for y'all. I don't know.
Oh my dude, that would be elite.
He's making quite a bit of money. I think he's making like 20 mil almost. So I don't know if it's possible, but I would love Cam Johnson for the Sixers. I mean, if you send Paul Reed back to the Nets, like maybe it works. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not Bobby Marks, so I don't know the exact dollar amount.
I've been really good with the cap for a long time. I'm still figuring out some of the CBA stuff. It's confusing.
Mm-hmm. A+ start for the Sixers though. So
I agree. Daryl Morey's cooked. He's not cooked, but he has been cooking.
Yeah, he's not cooked. Unlike Pat Riley, he's not cooked.
Yeah, shout out to Matt.
Not to hate on the Heat, but one of our best friends is a Heat fan. He's just so miserable that they haven't done anything.
We got to get Matt on the pod at some point soon. He's got the new apartment. We need to get him set up recording and bring Matt on the pod. They brought
Drew Smith back, so I mean.
They did. Big day for Matt. Bring back Drew Smith. I mean, I would even like y'all, like we talked about some options before the pod. Haywood Highsmith, I would like a lot for y'all. Caleb Martin, I'm not sure what money he's demanding, but if you could bring him in, he'd be really good too. Like there's some still interesting wing guys that could play like that 3-4 spot, depending on how you maneuver the roster still on the market. So we'll see.
I definitely think we make a trade with Paul Reed and a pick for a wing. I'm going to put that out there right now. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen.
There's some interesting guys out there. I wonder if you could, like, I'm trying to think if there's anybody on the Utah Jazz, because it seems like if they're looking to trade Lauri Markkanen, like they don't really have any great wing players if it's not
unless we bring in John Collins.
Yeah, like John Collins isn't really going to fit out there on the wing.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's kind of a weak spot for them. I mean, you could
DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks.
That's a pickup I would like. I would like DeAndre Hunter.
I'm throwing that out there.
Okay. I think he's also making a good bit of money, but I think you can make it work.
UVA legend.
But yeah, shout out to them. And now I want to go ahead and shout my Oklahoma City Thunder. I think our two teams are two of the biggest winners of free agency so far.
Oh yeah, man. Do you know that meme where it's like the two guys holding up the that tied bandanas or whatever together, like to unite. I feel like that's Sixers and Thunder fans right now. They, because they're both preying on the Clippers' downfall, and they both have arguably been the best 2 off seasons. So if you know what meme I'm talking about, that's Sixers Clippers or Sixers Thunder right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, we've done great. This is a home run off season. I couldn't have asked for anything better. We added Alex Caruso, of course, only trading Josh Giddey, not giving up any picks. Woke up this morning and we brought back Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe on great contracts.
What was the Wiggins contract? I saw Joe's, and he got a bag, man. Good for him.
Yeah, it was about $9 million a year for Aaron Wiggins, which is incredible value. He got $12 million a year, which for a shooter in this era's NBA is massive. To get those guys back on, and it's for Wiggins, it's 5 years. For Joe, it's 4 years. So to have them locked up for the next 4 years, when we're eventually going to have to pay Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams their money, and then Shea will eventually get that massive extension at some point. It's great to have those guys back on that type of money. They're both integral to the rotation. They're going to be huge. And then Isaiah Hartenstein, he's the guy I wanted. I said it here on the podcast. I've said it a lot on my channel, on Twitter. Hartenstein has been the big fish I wanted the Thunder to get, and they got him. They gave him a good bit of money. It averages out to $29 million a year, but it's front loaded. And then the last year, I believe, is partially unguaranteed or maybe fully unguaranteed. I think it's partially, which is great for the Thunder because that also lines up with when we would have to extend those guys or when those extensions would kick in. So it gives us more financial flexibility. And people have been talking about it's an overpay. If we bring Hartenstein off the bench, you're paying almost $30 million to a backup. The thing is, we've got money to spend. We weren't going to use it for anything else. And now it gives us theoretically as well a tradable contract if we want to use that in a future deal. It also gives us a guy that fixes some of our biggest issues: size, rebounding. He had, I think, the second best offensive rebounding rate in the league this past season, average over 3 a game.
Boy, don't need that.
Desperately needed that. He also has versatility where he can play with Chet or without Chet. I'm curious to see what we do with that starting lineup at times. I would imagine Hartenstein still comes off the bench, but I don't know what their pitch was necessarily to him to come over. Like, did they tell him he could start some games? Because we can still close, say we're going up against Minnesota, we could put Chet out there on Karl Anthony Towns and put Isaiah Hartenstein, Rudy Gobert if we wanted to go double big. And then he's also one of the best defensive bigs in the league, adds another great defender next to Shea and Caruso and Dort and Chet and Jalen Williams and Casey Wallace. This team is loaded. I am super, super excited. We fixed some of our biggest issues off the bat, drafted some ball handlers. To me, it's been an A+. I couldn't have pictured a better offseason for the Thunder. Like, if they trade for Lauri Markkanen, I might literally die. I might just explode. I don't know if it's going to happen because they've done a lot, but it's one of those off seasons that I think this will go down as one of maybe the greatest offseason in Thunder history, especially when you consider the fact that Hartenstein is our biggest free agent signing ever. Up until now, it was probably Isaiah Joe with the impact that he's had on the team. It's easily Isaiah Hartenstein now, which, I mean, maybe that's kind of a turning of the leaf moment where the Thunder can actually get free agents now. I don't know.
What's the next Isaiah that you guys signed to be the next biggest?
The next Isaiah Joe? I don't know, man.
No, next, because Isaiah Hartenstein, Isaiah Joe, all your big free agent splashes are Isaiah's.
Isaiah Thomas coming back.
Yeah.
We need more guard.
Both of them.
Yeah. We bring back both Isaiah Thomases. We're a team now it feels like almost 50% like Jalen's and Isaiah's. We've got 4 Jalen/Isaiahs on the team now.
If your name starts with an I or a J, odds are you're on the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, we're even like, Isaiah Joe has both of them in there, the I and the J. So, but yeah, I'm super excited. I can't wait to watch this team. I'm so sad I've got to wait till October to see this team like all play together.
Same, man. I really want to just go to Wells Fargo Center and hear Paul George introduced, and hear the crowd roar. And
we're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go see. I don't know.
Man. I'm gonna try to go as long as it fits on a good day. I'm gonna try to go to the first home game. I think. Depending on when
I'm up here in New York, a train right over, and we'll see what the schedule looks like. Go to a Thunder Sixers game. That'd be cool. Maybe record a little bit, some content surrounding that. But yeah, man, we're both stoked. Like, this is it's great that we don't have one of us that had an awful free agency to start the podcast.
And I don't think either of our teams are done either.
I don't think so. No, like the Thunder still have about $8 million with a taxpayer
and you have so
exemption.
many picks too.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways we could upgrade. I think the Thunder aren't done. We're going to make at least one more signing. I don't know who that is. If I had to add somebody, I would say just someone else who can give us like another front court player, a wing, because we have a bunch of guards. Anybody who can give us like some pretty consistent 3-point shooting. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So yeah, I mean, I would also like Haywood Highsmith. I know some people brought up Caleb Martin for the Thunder too as an option. There's some good players out there still. So we'll see what happens.
I like Martin for Philly. I liked him a lot.
I like Martin a lot for y'all potentially. So
If we bring him back in a minimum deal, I actually really like that, and give him some power forward minutes. I wouldn't hate that at all.
Yes, sir. All right. So those are our teams. That's how we're feeling right now. Now, if you remember
can I
last
throw one more
episode,
thing out there?
go
One more
for
thing
it.
out there. I've seen a lot of people say the Sixers want to get Kenrich Williams. So
I mean, he didn't really play a lot in the playoffs. I don't think it's
our
out of
team perfectly. So I'm just throwing that out there. If the Sixers Thunder have a collab on their A+ off seasons, I'm going to throw that out there in case it happens and it can get clipped before we move on.
Okay, well, Ryan's got the Kenrich Williams take on here live.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of it for our teams. If you remember last episode, we did a free agent tracker where we went ahead and made predictions where everybody was going to land. Ryan went ahead and updated that. So we're going to go through and use that to talk about where some of the biggest free agents landed and our thoughts on their landing spots. So let me go ahead and swap over. Here it is. If it's highlighted in green, that means either person got it right. Again, the stipulation, if you didn't see last episode, was we could not pick the same team. So we had to try and think out of the box. And it has resulted in a pretty close result. I think Ryan said right now I'm up 8-7, but I will say Ryan had easily the best poll out of any of these players, like just kind of randomly shooting in the dark, like a dart out there. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But obviously at the top, Paul George goes to the Sixers. I picked the Clippers. Ryan picked the Cavs. It seemed like the Sixers weren't going to really pursue Paul George.
At the time when we made this is when that report came out that the Sixers weren't interested. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that was a smoke screen of sorts, considering they just, lobbed the full bag at him. But
yeah, which is crazy that it went from, they're probably out on him to like easily the front runners, which also crazy that the Clippers just straight up put out like a statement before he even signed, like, hey, he's gone. Which I don't think
the Warriors did the same thing with Klay before he signed. Same thing.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's crazy. It's a new NBA, I guess. Next thing is OG Anunoby. I don't remember if he had already signed by the last time. No, because we predicted it. So yeah. But he stays with the Knicks on a big contract. I don't remember the exact details. It's a ton of money.
I think it was five for 214 or something like that. It was something like that.
Yeah, they gave him a lot. I think it's fine. Ryan gets this one right. He did have the first selection. I will say that. But yeah, OG Anunoby lands back with the Knicks. And the Knicks are loading up with talent. I don't remember. We didn't have this done when Mikal Bridges was a Knick, did we?
We did not.
So, yeah, I guess we could talk about that real quick. Mikal Bridges landing with the New York Knicks. They gave up a lot for Mikal Bridges. It was a ton of assets, but I kind of see it similar to the way I see with the Sixers. Right now, they have a chance to capitalize on one of the best teams of the modern era. This is the best Knicks team I've ever been alive for. You have to capitalize, and a team theoretically with Jalen Brunson out there, Dante DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, as well as, or not even Dante DiVincenzo. I forgot Julius Randle exists, but you have JB, you've got Mikal, you've got OG, you've got Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson. That's a crazy starting five defensively. You've got guys that can space the floor around Brunson, that can knock down outside shots consistently. It's a really exciting team over there for the Knicks. I think they're going to be amazing. To me, it's the Celtics and then like the Sixers and Knicks right now battling for that 2 spot. I would have the Knicks up right now just because the Sixers don't have a full roster.
They have 7 players.
But yeah, it's something they had to do. They had to give up a bunch of money to OG. They had to throw a bag at Mikal Bridges or a bag of assets.
A bag of picks.
Yeah, they tried to bring back Isaiah Hartenstein, and they just weren't able to match what the Thunder were offering. Apparently, he really wanted to go back, but OKC's offer was just too much to pass up. So I think this makes sense.
Yeah, and the thing with the Knicks too is they're really building their team to go up against the Celtics really well. They're all built around big, versatile wings. So when you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as the 2 best players, on the reigning champs, and then you have a Mikal Bridges, a Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby, all guys that can guard pretty much anyone and play the perimeter, shoot the ball, play defense. I just really think it matches up well against the Celtics. And I do think even though the Celtics might have the higher ceiling of talent, the Knicks are kind of getting up there, spreading the talent around a little bit. And I do think too, that with all these wings, I could see them running a lot of lineups where they might put Julius Randle at the 5, especially now they don't have Hartenstein. I could so see them, playing a lineup that has all those guys in and just they run Randle at the 5. I could totally see it. And then I also saw a meme posted earlier. Your mic's muted, by the way. I know you're about to say something, but I saw a meme earlier where they said that Josh Hart's reaction when Tom Thibodeau says he has to guard all the centers, and then Josh Hart posted a reaction of like him going like,
taking off his sunglasses and like looking down at the camera.
So I thought that was pretty funny. But I think that's a very realistic thing where they run those lineups with all those wings and maybe Randall there, or they say screw it and put Bridges or Anunoby at the 5 and just run small ball. I could totally see it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Celtics are built around those wing players. That's kind of the way the league is having those versatile guys. They definitely the backup five thing is a concern. I do think we see some Julius Randle backup 5 minutes with Dante DiVincenzo, Brunson, and the two wings out there, and I think that could be a deadly kind of death lineup if you just want to go all out on offense. We'll have to. I mean, it would depend who the big is they go up against. If Randall can hold his own, but he's a big physical guy. He can at least bruise a little bit down low, hold his own. So it's interesting. And I mean, off the bench, they've still got Deuce McBride. They've got Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo out of that starting lineup too. Like that's easily one of the best 8-man rotations in the NBA. Like pretty clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for Knicks. Like this is again the best Knicks team I've ever been alive for.
Oh, easily.
So if I had to give a grade to the OG Anunoby signing, I'll go with I guess a B+, like an A-.
I'm going A. You had to bring him back. You don't give him quickly and Barrett and not bring him back. It's an A.
Yeah, I'll go. I guess I'll go with A-. Like they would have maybe liked to get him for a little bit less.
Especially with going in on Mikal Bridges. If you gave up 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges and then did not sign OG back, that's a terrible look, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Ryan gives an A. I give it an A- just because the money it's a lot. But again, like Ryan said, you had to do that. Okay, DeMar DeRozan has not been signed. He's probably the biggest name still out there. I have him going back to the Bulls. He's 100% a Laker. Ryan's definitely getting this pick, which is annoying. He's not coming back to the Bulls. I don't know if you saw the report today.
I did.
Apparently the Josh Giddey trade was like the breaking point from coming back to the Bulls. Like once he saw that happen, he basically said, "I'm not coming back to Chicago," which is crazy. He saw that and he was so mad. He's like, "This is not happening anymore." So I guess I can't blame him, but. You've got DeRozan. It seems like the Lakers are like the only team left that could grab him because we're going to talk about teams that really didn't do anything at the end of this. The Lakers have done nothing. Like they've made no moves other than Max Christie getting an extension, which shout out to him. D'Lo accepted his player option, but they've got to do something. And I do think DeRozan could be a good fit. He's not really a floor spacer. It's not as good as like if they'd gotten Klay Thompson because they struck out on him. They struck out on Jonas Valanciunas, who went to a wild location. And then who else was it? DeJounte Murray, they did trade for him. It doesn't feel like Zach LaVine makes much sense. One thing I do like ideally for the Lakers is Jeremy Grant. I've heard reports that they could be interested, and I don't think they'd have to give up that much. You could probably do I was doing a BR stream earlier, and I drew up a trade where it was Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, and a first-round pick for Jeremy Grant. I think that's probably all you have to give up with this big contract. And I think he'd be a great fit. So we'll see what the Lakers do, but they've got to do something. And maybe it does feel like DeMar DeRozan makes sense.
AD would have to buy into the 5 with that lineup, though.
Yeah, he'd have to really buy into the 5. All right, next up we've got Nick Claxton. He re-signs with the Spurs on a pretty solid deal. I got
to stop you real quick. First of all, you skipped your boy quickly, and then you said Claxton re-signed with the Spurs. So you went 0 for 2 there.
Man, I ISO'd and I dribbled the ball off my leg and dove after it.
You just did a Tobias Harris pump fake and
Tobias Harris pump fake, drive, dribble, back down, and then throw up an air ball is what I did right there. Let's try and run this thing back. Re-ISO. Emmanuel Quigley, back to the Raptors on a big deal. He got a lot of money, like $30 million a year. I don't hate it. I know a lot of people didn't like it. He's a young guard. You lock him up long-term now. And again, I think we have to kind of reorchestrate the way we look at contracts. Like $30 million is a lot. It's not even that insane in today's NBA. Again, Paul George got like $50 million.
Derek White just got almost $40 million a year.
Derek White just got like $40 million a year. And Derek White's definitely better than Quickly. But I think you and I are both believers in Quickly as like a guy with a ton of potential still. So I don't hate the deal at all. I think give it like a B+. Again, it is a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. B+ is cool.
Okay. So yeah, Quickly back over there to the Raptors. Now we get to Nick Claxton. He is back with the Brooklyn Nets. That's one I got right. Yeah, I think it makes sense. The Nets are going ahead and blowing it up, which thank the Lord they are. I guess we didn't even talk about the Nets' perspective in that Mikal Bridges trade. I thought they did they saved their franchise that night.
Oh, 100%. They needed to do that. They've been saying for so long, they want to build around Mikal Bridges. They want to build around Mikal Bridges. It's like, no, you want to build around the 5 first-round picks he can net and then pull an Uno reverse card on your franchise for when you guys got screwed over by the Boston Celtics and trying to do that, with the Knicks in this scenario. And so, when the Knicks and Nets there's some stat that they hadn't made a trade in like a long, long time. I
think it was like 40 years. I think like since the 80s.
But when you're offered 5 first-round picks for a guy who's never even been an all-star, I don't think. Yeah, you take the deal. I mean,
5 picks.
We're packing the bags.
Oh, yeah. You had to make that move. It was something you and I both wanted to see them do. And not only that, but they also in the same night got their picks back from the Rockets.
Yep. That was big too. And that tells me they're going to tank too. Because you don't trade back for your own pick unless you're going to be terrible.
Yeah, I think Cam Johnson's gone. Dorian Finney-Smith is gone, which makes it interesting. Like, could those, where could those wings end up? But yeah, I mean, thank God they're actually going that route. And I do think bringing back Claxton, like he's not going to make you good enough to not be one of the worst teams in the East. They're going to be awful next season. Cam Thomas is going to shoot like 40 times a game. That's what they should be doing. They should be going for Cooper Flagg and all the guys in this loaded 2025 draft class. This is one that they're saying is one of the better draft classes we've seen in a while. And that's with some great draft classes recently. So it's a great time to go ahead and tank. I'm glad they decided to do it now. And yeah, when you get an offer of like 5 first-round picks in a swap, I believe it was, you can't turn that down.
Bold prediction: Zach LaVine and assets go to the Nets. LaVine and Ben Simmons are tank commanders.
I could see that world. My only concern is like they might want to just straight up tank and not really bring in talent.
But that could be a way they trade guys like Cam John. You know what I mean? Like
that's true.
They'd have to give up a lot of money to take that in. So
that's true.
A way to get assets and trade off.
Ben Simmons, future Chicago Bull, is what Ryan is predicting.
I can see it.
They put Gideon, Ben Simmons, the Australian dynamic duo over there.
That Bible out there, you'll have the Australian non-lethal shooters.
bring back Patty Mills if you want a shooter.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be the only shooting there.
Yeah, bring back to the NBA. All right, James Harden stays with the Clippers on
kind of have to.
2-year, $70 million deal. Oh, also for the Nets, Claxton thing, grade. I guess I'll just say an A-, I guess. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it an A. I mean, there's no reason not to bring him back. And I mean, he's a great player. I think that's a great contract with someone of his caliber. And, maybe he's someone that you can trade one day. Maybe by the time his contract gets towards the end of it, you're a better team again and he can be your good center. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like he's young enough where he could transition to a different he could transition to a different era if you need him to. You could flip him. He's on a decent contract. Okay. Harden, 2 years, $70 million with a player option in the second year back to the Clippers. They had to do this to try and keep this thing afloat. I feel like it's pretty likely he leaves next year if they're not as like we don't believe. You and I were talking before.
Yeah.
We don't believe the Clippers are going to be that good next season. Like they're making some interesting signings. The thing is we're both rooting on the Clippers' downfall.
So we're haters regardless.
I don't want to do it directly because I hate rooting against teams, but it would be beneficial to us if they fell apart. But at this point, the Clippers are kind of a sinking ship at this point. And I mean, yeah, I think it's fine. You give Harden money. If he walks next year, he walks. You try and run this thing back. It's all right. Like a B, I guess, is what I'll give it.
Honestly, I'll give it a B+ simply because you don't make that trade with Philly if you don't bring him back and let him walk. And not that it really had a market anyways, I don't think. I think it was always going to be the Clippers bringing him back. And 35 a year at this point for Harden is really not that bad. It's nowhere near the max that he wanted from Philly, which I think is also kind of funny considering he was like on Daryl Morey for being a liar for them not giving him a max. And then he signs back with the Clippers for basically another 1-year deal. So
yeah, it's crazy how someone's brought up the point that Harden left the Sixers and was calling Daryl Morey a liar and that he hated him. He would never play for a team with him again. And then Paul George immediately the next season leaves to join that team that Harden despised so much. All right, next up we've got KCP who goes to the Orlando Magic. It's 3 years, $66 million. I believe it's $22 million a year roughly. I picked the Sixers as a prediction. Ryan said the Pistons. He goes to Orlando Magic.
I think I changed that pick. I want to say I had the Magic, and then I realized I picked. I think I switched that. I think that was an audible. That might have been.
I was gonna say, like, it felt like I'm surprised neither one of us picked the Magic because I think that makes sense, and I feel like I would have picked the Magic if you did it. So
I might have switched that. Now someone will have to roll back the tape, but that might have been a big fail on my part.
I'm pretty sure you fumbled the bag.
It wouldn't be the first time. But we both have talked about this trade a lot. We love it. Or not trade, this signing. We love it a lot. We hate it for the Nuggets, man. Connor can get into that, I feel like, because he feels really strongly about that. And, as someone who's been talking about nonstop how the Nuggets have no depth, this makes it even worse. But the Magic, who were one of the league's worst shooting teams last year, get a great shooter who also fits their identity of, a strong defensive team. So I think he fits perfectly in that, that lineup with Jalen Suggs, Franz, Paolo, Wendell. I really like it for them. And I think he's a perfect pickup. And we'll get to in a little bit. They also added Gary Harris back. So I like that they're getting more of these, 3-and-D wings to put, in this lineup where they had no 3-point shooting.
Yeah, they needed spacing. They got a 40% shooter who's knocked down. Like you said, good defender. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a great addition. For the Nuggets, it's bad. Like the depth chart, I'll pull it up because the Nuggets depth chart.
It was already bad. Like last season, I really think that was one of the reasons why they, had an early exit compared to the year prior. But right now, man, they're an injury away from one of their good guys to having a pretty insanely bad line.
Their 6 man right now is Justin Holiday. Like that in 2024, that's rough. Its starting lineup right now is Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. Like it's still a good starting five. Just losing KCP is big. It's just the depth is so rough. Like Peyton Watson, really good defender. The offense has to come around. I'm not sure how ready he's going to be to contribute. You've got young guys like a Julian Strother, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, but I don't know how many of those guys are going to give you like big minutes. Trey Alexander,
baby.
Jay Huff, UVA legend, shout out to him. There's rumors that Jokic is pushing for them to grab Russell Westbrook and add him to the team. And I would like Russ for this team. They need a backup guard desperately, but they're in a tough spot right now if you're Denver. Like this is a rough time. They did add Deron Holmes, who can be a backup big, and I like his game a lot. I guess we'll have to see if he's ready to contribute from day one because they've never been good at putting backup bigs behind Jokic. Like they keep I don't know how DeAndre Jordan continues to stay on the Denver Nuggets, but he's always one of the first guys re-signed on like a 1-year deal at the end of the season, at the beginning of free agency. It always happens. So yeah, especially when you've got the Thunder, grabbing a lot of talent. The Timberwolves are still really good. We'll talk about the Mavericks. They've had some moves being made this offseason that are pretty interesting as well. Like there's an arms race out in the Western Conference too. The Pelicans, depending on how you feel about the DeJounte Murray trade, which we'll talk about in a little bit, they made an addition. Like teams are trying to get better. The Nuggets just feel like they're in a really tough spot. And apparently they did offer KCP a good bit of money. He just wanted to go somewhere else. So I don't know what's going on over there. It feels like, though, they're rapidly fumbling a championship contender, though.
Yeah, man. I don't know where. I feel like them and the Bucks are in a very similar boat where they still have their top-end talent, but the depth gets real, real ugly really fast.
We'll see, man. They've still got time. There's still names out there, and we'll see what they come up with as like a backup option. But yeah, not looking great for the Nuggets right now. Miles Bridges, you said the Hawks for some reason. I picked the Pistons. They do still have some money left to spend. This could be a spot where he lands. I saw some rumor that he could be in a sign and trade to the Grizzlies. That's completely oh my God, that beat me up. Unsubstantiated.
Well, blame it on your lack of sleep. You've been up for a while. Made a lot of content today.
I slept like 1 hour last night. I'm doing my best. But yeah, I mean, I guess he could land wherever. I don't feel like he's probably going back to Charlotte. I just don't know if it makes sense at this point for them. Maybe they bring him back on a cheap deal. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. And then we got Isaiah Hartenstein going to the Thunder. I accurately predicted that one, going ahead and getting a point for myself. It felt like it was the Thunder or the Knicks. It didn't seem like he was going anywhere else, especially when the Magic added KCP. They were rumored suitor. The Pistons were rumored, but it did feel like he was going to go from a championship contending team with the Knicks, theoretically, or the Thunder to going to the Detroit Pistons. It just didn't seem likely. I already ranted and raved about how much I love the deal, so I won't get into it. But yeah, happy to see Isaiah Hartenstein with the Thunder. And then Klay Thompson. There was the news that came out that he was going to try to orchestrate a sign and trade. We predicted. I had the Sixers. Ryan had the Magic. This was before we found out that the Warriors were willing to go ahead and work with him on that. Guaranteed he was leaving, although we assumed he was. He lands with the Dallas Mavericks, which is a very, very interesting fit. What are your thoughts?
I mean, some people are hating on it, man, but I really like it. I just think Kyrie and Luka draw so much attention, from other teams' defense. Think about how many times, Connor, that Derrick Jones Jr. was bricking a three, or like when you
not against us,
not against the Thunder,
but or PJ.
But think there was, especially towards the end, though, like the finals, especially, and even a little bit in the Western Conference Finals, where PJ and Derrick Jones Jr., were having off games, and if that was Klay Thompson there, man, and he has one of his vintage games, like that can turn a game around. And I do think he still has some left in the tank. I think a new change of scenery will kind of re-energize him a little bit. I do think he's got some ball left in him. And I just really like the fit, man. I think, having Steph Curry was one of the I'm not saying that Steph made Klay, but, Steph Curry drew so much attention that gave Klay such good looks. And the fact that he's already a sniper as is just made for a recipe for success. And I really think that that's going to be replicated in Dallas. So in that case, I really like it. A lot of people are talking about the defense is going to be really suspect in Dallas, but I don't know, man. We'll see. I mean, we kind of thought Dallas was suspect at defense from day one, yet, they had one of the better defenses in the Western Conference for a lot of the season. So maybe in that case, it's more of a team philosophy, than the personnel. Jason Kidd's kind of known as a defensive coach.
He did a good job getting them to defend, especially in the playoffs. Like Kyrie had one of the better defensive seasons of his career. Luka kind of bought in a bit more. Klay was really bad defensively last season. I will say that they need him to be a better version of himself. And I do think, not trying to be the second option like the Warriors kind of needed him to be some nights over here in Dallas, where he's just literally spotting up for great threes. I do think that could work. We'll have to see how the defense. That's the one thing I'm a little bit concerned about because Derrick Jones Jr. was a good defender for you, but was he on the list? Is Najee Marshall on here?
Yeah, he is. He's a little further down. Okay,
cool. We can save the Najee Marshall talk, but I like the pickup. He adds some more defense to this Mavericks team. And yeah, I mean, I like the fit too. I think it's a good acquisition. If he suddenly becomes really washed, that's kind of a concern. But assuming Klay doesn't really just all of a sudden fall off a cliff, he's kind of similar to what he did last year, where he was shooting around 39% from three and 9 attempts per game. And now he's getting wide open looks off Luke and Kyrie. Imagine, like you said, instead of it's Derrick Jones Jr. in the corner, it's Klay Thompson. That could be a massive swing for them. The offense could be ridiculous next year for the Mavericks. So yeah, I think it's a fine deal too. Another guy that the Lakers strike out on, it's tough over there, man. They really could have used him playing off of LeBron and AD.
I'm going to throw out a thing there. I don't know who holds the record. It's probably the Warriors or the Bucks or one of these teams that have been good recently, or maybe even Denver. I think the Mavericks put up one of the best offensive net ratings in a long time. I think the offense is going to be special.
The record keeps getting broken every year because that's the way it goes at this point in the NBA. I think last year, the Pacers were for a lot of the year. They had the best offense ever. I think the Celtics might have taken it by the end. It might have still been Indiana, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavericks are the number one offense in the NBA next season. And like you said, kind of set a record, maybe even a decent margin. They are the best offense. All right, Tyus Jones, another guy that has not signed yet. I know Ryan is interested in him somehow landing with the Sixers. That would be a great pickup. I've got the Spurs. Ryan has the Heat. I think I'm out on that because they brought in Chris Paul, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
I mean, you did kind of nail, though, that you thought they would get a veteran point guard for Wemby. So you kind of get a third of a point, in that realm.
Yeah, so. I get the consolation, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the theory. Just like we picked all the shooters for the Magic,
Exactly, yeah. We were shooting the right way, just not hitting the right buckets.
Exactly.
All right, we've got Tobias Harris, and Ryan gets this one right. He is joining the Detroit Pistons. 2 years. How much is it?
52.
2 years, $52 million. It's $26 million a year. I don't hate this.
I really don't either, man.
It is hilarious.
As someone who hated Tobias on his team, man, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Pistons. A young team that just had no glue, it felt like. And I feel like Tobias could be a little good glue guy for them, You know what you're going to get with him. The ceiling, I think, is kind of low, but I think the floor in this kind of, realm of play is probably pretty high. And he doesn't have to, focus on winning per se, because I really feel like he wasn't a very winning player with Philly. So I think this is probably a good atmosphere for him where he can just kind of play basketball and mentor some young guys. And it's a tradable contract if needed. And it's short term. $26 million is really not that bad for a team that has the money to spend.
If it was a 4-year deal, that much a year,
that'd be pretty trash.
Worse about it. But the 2 years feels good. I mean, Tobias is immediately their second best player next to Cade.
100%.
And they do add shooting. It's him. They have Tim Hardaway Jr. now, if he can knock down some shots. So they are bringing in spacing, taking on players that maybe they could see what the value is. Maybe they just happen to find a diamond in the rough. I will say Tobias Harris, apparently his dad is his agent, is what I've learned because I tweet out about this. Put that man in the Hall of Fame. There has never been someone that is better at securing the bag for, I guess, their son in NBA history, or maybe LeBron if you count him with Bronny. But Tobias Harris, insane. The fact that he went from the Sixers making that max deal, and everybody's like, he's not going to get paid anything near that. And now he's again making $26 million a year. It's just hilarious how he continues to pull it off.
I think when we talked about it, I predicted he would get 3 for 60. I kind of had a feeling he'd make around the $20 million mark, and it was going to be one of these teams with the cap space, that make it work.
I don't think he's a bad player. He just isn't a max contract player.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I think $20 million is perfectly fine for him.
You don't want him as your hopeful third best player on a championship team.
No, as a team that's trying to make your first play in a long time, though, which I do think the Pistons are going to be my play-in team, by the way. I'm just going to throw it out right now.
We were talking about this texting earlier. The Eastern Conference is going to be a disaster after the first 8 teams, it feels like. Yeah, because the Bulls could potentially bottom out. I mean, if they keep Zach LaVine, then they'll probably be a playing team because it's that bad. You've got the Raptors theoretically, but it just the Hornets. I honestly think maybe even have a chance. The Pistons. It's just you've got the top 8 teams that were the teams in the playoffs this year, and then it gets really bad.
I mean, Hawks could be bad, depending on what happens. They got rid of their second best player. So
I will say Trae Young during mid podcast here did tweet out just the prayer hand emoji.
Oh.
So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye. Also, Andre Drummond, by the way, we didn't talk about this. Him tweeting a couple minutes before it was announced that he was in the mood for a Philly cheesesteak was hilarious.
That was really funny.
I love when players do stuff like that. Okay, next up we have Patrick Williams. Goes back to the Bulls. It's 5 years, 90 mil, I believe, like 18 mil a year.
I like
People are
that,
freaking out about this. I like this too. Also, I realize we have not been doing grades at all. I completely forgot. Where were we?
Klay A. Tobias Harris B+.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we were going through kind of some of that where players weren't getting signed back. KCP, I think it's an A+ for the Magic.
Absolutely.
Hartenstein to the Thunder, I don't A+, I guess. I don't really
You probably give it an S tier.
S, yeah. Klay to the Mavericks, I'll say A- right now, B+, just because we'll have to see what version of Klay comes out there, but theoretically could be an A signing. Also, they didn't have to give up much of anything, I guess. It was just Josh Green, who does go to the Hornets. Shout out to the Hornets for getting involved in that.
That's a nice little pickup. I like that.
Yeah, that's a nice pickup for them. And then, Tobias Harris, B, I guess, just because it's, I don't know. They're not competing for a championship or anything. It's whatever. It's not bad. I don't think it's insane, but they have to spend the money somewhere. The Bulls, I think this is a fine deal for people freaking out about Patrick Williams getting 18 mil. If you were to guess how old Patrick Williams was at this point, how old do you think he is?
25.
He is 22 years old.
22?
Crazy, right?
Wow, okay.
Because he was drafted when he was 18. So It feels like he's so much older, and people are saying he hasn't proven anything. He's still 22, and if they get rid of Levine and DeRozan, he hasn't really had a chance to prove himself. Now he'll be a much more featured part of the offense. This will be his kind of hopeful breakthrough moment. And hey, if he doesn't pan out, whatever. The Bulls are going into a rebuild. It doesn't matter. He, at the very least, I think he's going to be a good 3-and-D wing, or wing 4, depending on what you play him as. And if he does pan out, 18 mil a year is super cheap for what he could become. I like this deal a lot. I don't know why people are freaking out about this.
I like it too.
What else were the Bulls going to do? I think this is an A. I'm a fan.
I like it too.
Next up, Gary Trent Jr. has not signed. Magic and Knicks are the teams we predicted. I had Magic. Ryan had the Knicks. Seems like the Knicks are probably out on him because they've got all that money now with OG and Mikal Bridges tied up. But, I mean, the Magic could theoretically still add him as a shooter, although Gary Harris came in. Honestly, the Sixers, I don't hate the idea of him coming in there as a guy off the bench as a shooter. I saw a report that apparently he really just doesn't have a market like he wanted the MLE, and he's not going to get it. I honestly wouldn't even mind him on the Thunder, theoretically, if we wanted to add another shooter to the team using our 8 mil. So we'll see on him. Royce O'Neal goes back to the Suns. I got that one correct. Running a little bit of a hot streak for me between Patrick Williams and Royce O'Neal. He went back it was like about, I think, $10 to $11 million a year for 3 years.
X out.
I think it was 3 years, 33 mil. This is a fine deal. I mean, a good role player for them. They desperately need these guys. It's fine. I'm going to give it a B+, A-, I guess. I think they had to make this deal.
100% had to make it.
Yeah. Isaac Okoro, still restricted free agent. I had the Pistons because Ryan took the Cavaliers. He's going to go back to the Cavs. So I think that's another point for Ryan. The more I'm looking at this list, I think Ryan's got me beat eventually. The Lakers, keep D'Lo because he accepts the player option.
I would have rolled the Bulls, though, because I picked DeRozan going to the to the Lakers. I try to get a little two for here.
If that does happen, what, do we both get a point, I guess, because he was a Laker and a Bull?
Nah, because you didn't get Reggie Jackson. We'll get to that, but
okay, but the Reggie Jackson thing, that was like an immediate, like as soon as he like kind of opted in, or like they immediately.
We might be able to call it a wash because then I'd get the DeRozan point if they did a little swap.
Man, I don't win either way. But yeah, it feels like Russell's probably going to get moved. He's one of the bigger contracts they can trade. Reports are that they're looking for it. So yeah, I mean, for the Lakers, it's like I honestly kind of like a B+, A- because I feel like that's the grade I'm giving everything, but there haven't been any signings I've hated so far that we've gone through. I like it because the Lakers now have a better tradable asset that they can move. So that's cool. And they're not losing him for anything, or for nothing, rather.
Yeah, it looks like then we get to a list of some unsigned people. We have Buddy Hield. I think he'll just go to a team that needs some shooting. I think, honestly, I don't know if he'll do Sixers or Magic. I can see the Sixers going back if he takes, a pay cut. But I do think that we might have to renounce his rights, I think, to get Paul George. So might not be able to bring him back, but we'll see. I think a team might just throw their mid-level at him that hasn't used theirs yet.
Yeah, another guy that if we spent our 8 mil on Buddy Hield, I wouldn't mind either. Just continuing to bring in more shooting. So we'll see on his front. Caleb Martin, we talked about a lot. I predicted the Hawks. Ryan predicted the Mavericks, which I don't think they could make that work now unless it's a sign and trade.
Yeah.
The Hawks, I don't know why I picked the Hawks.
Same reason I picked Miles Bridges. We just thought they were going to get a wing for some reason.
Probably.
Being out for the year.
The Hawks we had to give them somebody. Simone Fontecchio, nothing yet. Ryan predicted the Wizards. out of nowhere. I predicted the
I
Pistons.
was one too early for the Wizards, man.
He was one too early because next we've got Jonas Valanciunas, who signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Wizards, which is super out of nowhere.
This might have been the grossest deal yet, I think.
It's a weird one.
First one I got a notification about, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of them bringing in Jonas. It's just like, why? My main thing is, now the front court is so crowded, they have to trade Kuzma, if you ask me, because now you've got Alex Sarr at the 4, you've got Jonas Valanciunas at the 5. I presume you're starting him if you signed him. Then you've got Bilal Coulibaly as well as Kyle Kuzma. I don't know if you want to put Bilal at the 2. Yeah, you've got Marvin Bagley still there as well. They brought back Rashawn Holmes for some reason. Yeah. That's a random signing.
They gave him a good amount of money too, didn't they?
They did. It felt like maybe to use as like just a tradable contract or something like that. I don't know why they've got guys like bodies. If they're planning on signing Jonas, I don't know what the point of that was. The Wizards have had a weird free agency, man. I don't know what they're quite doing. They're in a rebuild. I guess it's not the worst thing. I give this one, I guess, like a C.
I give it a C plus, probably just because they might be able to flip them.
That's true, I guess. Using your cap space on a player you could theoretically flip. I don't know. I really want to see them bottom out and just go for it because, like we talked about, the East isn't going to be that bad, or it's going to be bad, but there are going to be a lot of teams that are also really bad. So you need to really try and get to the bottom if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Obi Toppin goes back to the Pacers. Ryan gets this one.
I like it.
I like it too. It's, what was it, like 16 mil a year, I believe, roughly.
Yeah, high energy guy for a high energy offense. You know, he's looked really good since he's got kind of unleashed from the Knicks, and he's a good fit for them. So I dig it.
Yeah, bring him back, especially because you lost Jalen Smith. Yep. You get a guy to kind of replace those minutes or, continue to maintain replacing those minutes. I will say I feel bad for Jarris Walker. I wouldn't be surprised. A trade I drew up, let me know what you think about this, and let me know in the comments too. I drew it for my BR stream, was Jarris Walker and 2 second-round picks to the Nets for Cam Johnson. So you free Jarris Walker from Indiana, where he's now stuck behind Obi Toppin, Nesmith, Siakam, all these guys in the front court. You send him over to the Nets, where he can actually get some playing time. And then for the Pacers, they get back another really fun wing in Cam Johnson. And you could run out a starting lineup of Halliburton, Mathurin, or Nembhard, or whoever you want to put there at the 2, Nesmith if you really want to go big. But you could put, theoretically, Halliburton, Nembhard, Cam Johnson, Siakam, and Miles Turner. That's a really fun team.
Cam Johnson would fit that offense really well. I'm a big fan of that. It
would be fantastic. So that's a random deal I came up with earlier. Just give Jarris Walker a chance to spread his wings elsewhere, and you get a really good player for your team. So we'll see about on that front. Derrick Jones Jr. going to a place I don't think either one of us would have ever guessed he was going to. I said he's going back to the Mavs. Ryan said the Warriors. I would have been more. I mean, that honestly could have theoretically worked if it was like, involved with a Klay Thompson deal of some kind.
A little sign and trade.
Yeah, but he goes to the Clippers, 3 years, $30 million, which I feel like is fine value for Derrick Jones Jr., just getting a player that can help you try and remain competitive going forward.
Yeah, hopefully he still is, because, no offense to him, but I feel like he really wasn't. He kind of got unleashed a little bit with the Mavericks. So I'm curious to see if that was like a Luka Doncic effect. Like, we always thought Derrick Jones Jr., was a really athletic, player, but he was kind of more known as just like the dude that could dunk and jump really high, and occasionally, put up some good defense because he's really lengthy. But we'll have to see if his play holds up with the Clippers. But it's almost like the Clippers are trying to to pull a quote from Moneyball. If you ever seen the movie, you lose Paul George, you try to recreate him. So all right, we'll get Derrick Jones Jr., on the wing, to kind of, replicate that part of Paul George. Now he's got to find someone that can, do some offense. So you can't get Paul George, but you can get some players that might have some attributes of him. So Who knows, man? But I mean, Clippers fans have actually been pretty happy with the offseason from what I've seen on Twitter, which is kind of surprising because here you and I are saying they might bottom out and look really bad. But I've seen Clippers fans be like, oh, I really like us getting Batum. Paul George didn't really do anything anyways. And so I don't know, man. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
I do think they've done a good job of plugging the holes in the sinking ship. I think Derrick Jones is a good pickup. Like you said, I don't know how good he's going to be after leaving Dallas, after playing off Luka. Although Harden is still one of those players that can put him in good spots to succeed. I could see a world where his value isn't as good with Los Angeles. We talked, Mo Bamba signed with them right before we started recording.
Yeah, literally right before we hit play, Connor's like, oh, we got a signing. It was Mo Bamba.
Sixer legend Mo Bamba over there. Who else did they go ahead and add? They added Chris Dunn, or at least reported that they're going after him. I think Jake Fisher said it might end up being a sign and trade actually with the Jazz to make things work. Russ, it seems like, is probably on the move going forward. That's what we've heard reported. Again, might be at like a Denver Nugget. I don't know, man. I just feel like, maybe they go for DeRozan and try and salvage this thing. Maybe they could be a fine team next season. I just think it's pretty clear, even with these signings, they're a far step behind the top teams in the Western Conference. And they're a Kawhi or James Harden injury from it really starting to fall apart out there with how many good teams there are, how many teams that are going to be competitive between the Thunder and the Mavericks and the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. You've still got the Lakers trying to get better. The Suns are, still trying to remain competitive. The Grizzlies are going to be back. Like, they're going to be really good next season.
Wemby's got a point guard. Watch out.
Wemby's got a point guard now. He can actually get the basketball. You've got the Rockets. Like, they showed a lot of fight at the end of last year. The Warriors, I don't know what happens with them, but they still have Steph Curry. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a stacked Western Conference. Yeah, speaking of the Western Conference.
The Klay Thompson replacement, which they almost gave the same amount of money to Melton that the Mavericks gave to Klay, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, this was super random. DeAnthony Melton for about, what was it, $13 million a year?
I really thought he was going to come back to Philly on a cheap deal. Because he was hurt towards the end of the year and he didn't really get to play a lot. So I thought maybe he was going to come back and like a prove it kind of deal because he'd have a pretty big role, considering our depth chart right now is kind of shallow. Mm-hmm. But good for him, though, getting the bag. He's a solid player. I mean, he's very, very streaky shooting, but when he's on, he can play some good defense and he can play make a little bit. But I don't know, man. It's just the
13 mil is a lot. I feel like for theoretically what DeAnthony Melton can be, I think it's fine, but he's been really hurt. Like last year, he hardly played.
Well, yeah, because he was just out with like a back injury and it was just like back soreness. And I swear he didn't play for like 3 months and everyone's like, where's Melton? It kind of felt like, how Ben Simmons was just out with like the back stuff for a while and like there was never really any updates. That's kind of how it was for Melton. And then all of a sudden the playoffs and they're like, oh yeah, Melton's available and we still didn't play him. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the Warriors are in a lot of trouble. It feels like they're kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll see. This one, I guess I'll give like a C maybe.
I thought I had the sneeze, so I muted myself. But yeah, I give a C-. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. For Derek, I don't think we graded Derek Jones Jr.
Derek Jones Jr., I mean,
I was going to go B+.
Yeah, I'm with it. I mean, it's a good pickup, but it's like not gonna. I think it's just a little bit of copium for losing your star player.
Yeah, they're holding out hope. Kyle Anderson, skip someone. Bruce Brown is still with the Raptors. They picked up the team option.
Very surprising, man. I really thought $22 million they were going to decline that, but I could see him getting traded personally.
Yeah, I still think a trade is theoretically coming. My idea was Bruce Brown getting traded for Tim Hardaway Jr. if they accepted it. It hasn't happened because Tim Hardaway Jr. is gone now, so I think that dream's kind of dead. Maybe it could still be a Hawk, but they traded DeJounte, so maybe they're bottoming out. I think Bruce Brown is still a really interesting player out there in the market. We'll see where he ends up going, but for right now he is with the Raptors. Kyle Anderson, or I was going to grade that, but they just accepted it.
Yeah, that's a TBD in my opinion.
Yeah,
because I think I'm agree with Connor. I think he gets moved.
Kyle Anderson, I had him as a net. Ryan as a Wizard, has not signed. Reported from Mark Stein that the Celtics could be a suitor, which is interesting. Yeah, nothing crazy. Kelly Oubre goes back to the Sixers.
Very happy with that.
I got a point on that.
Sorry about that weird spelling. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, the Sixers he goes over there.
The new expansion team.
Yeah, new expansion team just dropped. But yeah, Kelly Oubre going back, that's huge. I mean, do you have anything else to say?
He was the first, because any Sixers fan who's watching this can vouch. The Sixers just had no spark plug offensively outside of their best players for the entirety of at least my fandom, because I've really only been a Sixers fan since the process. So we really just have never had that. We relied on Justin Anderson to be a spark off the bench in a playoff series, man. The Sixers were down bad for, that kind of offensive firepower. And Kelly Oubre was the first guy they had in a while. We tried with Montrezl Harrell to get a guy that could do that. And it's been fail after fail. So getting him back, and honestly, he's going to have a big role, kind of like he had last year. He's going to have to play a lot of wing minutes. So I'm pretty pumped. And, he is kind of a liability defensively, but I do think he hustles and, he's really lengthy and he tries, very athletic. So, I dig it, man. I'll take the effort all day. And
also, I mean, with Paul George out there and Joel Embiid, and if you add someone who's solid defensively at the 4, he'll be fine. Like you said, it's not like he just doesn't care on defense. It feels like he puts in the effort and does have some good defensive moments.
Yeah,
so it'll be fine.
Not to mention him and McCain, man. The Sixers they're bringing sexy back.
They got they're gonna have a hell of a TikTok duo over there,
dude. That first Oubre McCain TikTok is gonna break the internet. I feel
that's gonna go crazy. I'm really excited that y'all got Jared McCain. I think he can play minutes from day one and be really good for y'all.
Did you see the post that went like not viral, but like it went really popular on NBA Twitter where somebody said like Tobias Harris is no longer on my basketball team when he signed it. It was the TikTok of Jared McCain dancing in his Sixers uniform.
I did not see that.
It was pretty funny. I don't remember who posted
Jared McCain is going to give you fantastic reaction like videos too for the Sixers doing good stuff.
He's just Matisse Thybulle and he can actually shoot the ball.
Yeah, it's like if Matisse could shoot.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I guess not defend it. It's like if you flipped the skills of Matisse Thybulle and he's still got that same charisma.
Exactly.
Okay, next is Russell Westbrook, which for right now, he is back with the Clippers. Ryan got this one right. Although I will say, if you're giving me flack with the Reggie Jackson thing, I guess it depends if we're doing the even points. I guess if he does get dealt, you can still have the point for this one, unless
Let's see if he goes to the Spurs.
Yeah, I don't think
he's teaming up with back.
Chris Paul. Also for Oubre, A for the Sixers. Didn't give it a grade.
Oh, A. Russ for Clippers, TBD.
Yeah, TBD. We'll see if they trade him. Gary Harris, going back to the Magic. I picked the Nuggets reunion. Ryan picked the Grizzlies. He stays with Orlando. I think this is great. They just continue to maintain guys that can shoot the ball. They desperately need that. Yeah, give it a B+. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I like it too. Nothing too special, but, just as another shooter. And, I do think KCP is a big improvement over Gary Harris, in that aspect. So having Gary Harris is kind of like that second guy. I feel like Gary Harris is almost like a KCP light in a way, the way they play. So the fact that Gary Harris can be more of like that secondary, 3-and-D option at the shooting guard versus like your main go-to guy, I think is an improvement.
Yeah, you don't need him you don't have to rely on him as much.
Yeah.
Najee Marshall, we talked about him earlier. He goes to the Mavericks. I predicted Rockets. Ryan had Kings. This is a good fit for him. This is a good replacement for Derrick Jones Jr. Gives you physicality, size, solid defense, knockdown threes at a really high clip last season. For the rest of his career, he's been a pretty mediocre shooter, so he's got to show that he can replicate that. Although I feel like if there's anywhere to do it, it would be in Dallas, where you're getting wide open looks off Luka and Kyrie Irving. So
I will have to say the Pelicans, other than when they've had a lot of injuries, I feel like they've never really given Najee Marshall an expanded role. Like he's always shown pretty good glimpses. And when there's like, times where like Ingram and Zion are missing a lot of time, I feel like Najee Marshall looked pretty good in some extended run. So I'm kind of happy that he might actually have a chance, get some starting minutes and see what kind of, stats he can put up.
Yeah, he was good against us in the playoffs. He was one of the better shea defenders. I think he had one game where he hit like a number of threes as well, if I remember correctly. Or maybe that was a regular season game. There was one game this year where Najee Marshall couldn't miss against us, which was insane. But yeah, I think Najee Marshall's a good pickup. It was, I think, $9 million a year too, like $327. That's good value. Blake Beasley has not signed yet. Monte Morris has not signed yet. Haywood Highsmith, who we talked about earlier, has not signed. Precious Achiuwa, I think the Knicks, I believe they rescinded his qualifying offer, so he's an unrestricted free agent now. So he could go wherever. Ryan had the Spurs, I had the Knicks, so I'm out now. It just seems like I'm continuing to get things wrong.
I almost like the Knicks if they somehow bring him back on a smaller deal. I don't know if how often it actually happens when you renounce someone's rights and then you bring them back, or if that even would happen. But I mean, he would kind of fit perfectly. The fact that they lost Isaiah Hartenstein, maybe you can bring him back cost effectively, but I don't know how that works. I'm guessing probably not.
Yeah, I don't think they could, because I don't know if I think rescinding it probably gives up the bird rights.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they cleared his cap hold, which they were trying to do because that gave them more money to theoretically bring back iHeart, but obviously doesn't end up working. So we'll see where he goes. Goga Bitadze, I said Clippers. Ryan said Nuggets. He goes back to the Magic. I think that's a good pickup for them. Maintaining some size.
He's honestly looked really marginal in his career, other than on the Magic. When Wendell Carter missed a long period of time, and
he was fantastic in that.
He was starting center for a playoff team. I mean, I like it. He probably won't start. It'll probably be Wendell again, but he proved he could be a solid backup. So I'm with it.
Yeah, good with it too. A-, B+.
Yeah,
I feel like we give it too many A's.
But they're really or same. Every grade is the same. I can't speak. I feel like we're giving the same grade to most of these signings, but there really hasn't been a ton of like disgusting ones, other than maybe Jonas Valanciunas.
I'll just say B, I guess. B,
B+, just because you're negative.
I'm doing too many B+ and A-. I got to take it down. Nick Batum goes back to the Clippers on a like $8 million a year deal. Something.
I really thought he was going back to Philly.
I thought he was too. I said the Lakers. Ryan said the Sixers. I picked an LA team, just the wrong one. I didn't think there was going to be a reunion right there. I don't know how I feel about this one necessarily. I think this one I feel a little bit worse about, just because I mean, I guess again, the Clippers are trying to just do whatever they can to salvage this. Batum is good. I would have liked them a little bit better with Philly than LA. It feels like they need him to play a bit of a bigger role. He's up there in age. He had that amazing playing game, so maybe it's fine. Yeah, I think this one's like a C plus B minus for me. It doesn't move the needle that much if you ask me. Although I do think that Nick Batum is still a solid player.
Yeah. It's just like the Clippers, all right, we lost Paul George, so we'll get Nick Batum to get his shooting and Derrick Jones Jr. to get his defense. There we go.
Yep, they're gonna try and do a Yu-Gi-Oh like fusion dance card, try and combine them,
or like a Moneyball A's, like I was referring to earlier. We can't recreate Giambi, or we can't sign Giambi back, but we can recreate him.
Exactly, that's what they're going for. They watch too much of that.
I know.
Drummond, like we talked about, goes back to the Sixers. I had the Nuggets. You had the Clippers, and you flipped him. If you would put Batum back to the Clippers and Drummond back to the Sixers, you would have gotten it.
I know. Hate to see it.
Fumbled the bag. But yeah, we talked about this already. We don't have to go too much into it. Drummond coming back. Yeah, I think like B plus. Like it's fine.
That's good.
Okay.
Sixers, the thing is, Paul Reed was pretty solid, but the Sixers, kind of like the Thunder, really lacked rebounding a lot of times, especially when Embiid was off the court. And just having like that inside presence, like Paul Reed showed some flashes. And honestly, I think he was getting a lot better as the year went on. But just having Drummond's rebounding and having a guy that can really, hold his own down low, and all he's got to do is play 10 to 15 minutes a game. And I think the thing that we really like about Drummond too, and we saw this a lot when Embiid was hurt, when Drummond was on the team, is that Drummond is a lot better than Paul Reed in extended run. Like if Drummond has to play 30 minutes a game, he can put up, 15 and 20 rebounds, and then Maxey and Paul George could do their thing. Whereas when you have Paul Reed, he's kind of still more of, I feel like that like niche player, like high motor, more of like better in like a 15 to 20 minute type of, run time. So I think that's what a lot of people say they like more about Drummond is he can step in a little bit better and be that starting center if needed for a little bit.
Yeah, if Embiid needs to rest for some time, he could play that role. And again, don't even play that many minutes when Embiid's healthy.
Exactly.
Marco Fultz hasn't signed. We'll see where he goes. Jalen Smith. This is the one Ryan really nailed.
Yeah, if he didn't edit it on the right, I forgot to put the team there.
Yeah, he goes to the Chicago Bulls. Ryan gets it right. Yeah, man, you did it. It was what I think like $8 million, $9 million a year.
What a crazy pull.
I do like this pickup for the Bulls. It makes sense to add somebody.
Finally, a young player.
Yeah, they get a young player. Bring him in from the Pacers, who you don't seem to need him with Obi Toppin in town and Siakam and all those guys. But good poll, man. This is probably the best one out of any of them because it was just random. I think you were like, yeah, let's go with the Bulls. And I was like, okay.
We'll have to look back my reasoning on that one.
Yeah. Sadiq Bey, not signed, obviously torn ACL, so we'll see what happens. Jetty Osman, not signed.
I still think he's a buck. I really like both our picks, honestly. I like both of those.
Brian, you missed this. You got a point. Xavier Tillman back to the Celtics.
Did I miss that? When did they get him back? Was it recent?
I think I was hooping and I checked my phone. I think it's 2 years, 10 mil, like $5 million a year.
It must have just happened because before we started, I found a website where it had like every deal, and all I saw was they had Cornette and Keita. I don't know if that's how you say his last name.
Yeah, Neemias Queta.
Yeah, those were the only two they had on there. So it must not have been updated. So sweet, another point for me. So we're tied, actually.
Man, damn! I shouldn't have said anything. But yeah, I mean,
I like good third string. I like it.
Good third string B, whatever. Reggie Jackson, player option. He accepts it. He goes back to the Nuggets, but immediately they give him to the Hornets. So I was so close, but so far.
So close, but so far.
The Hornets just take on 3 second-round picks, just a salary dump deal.
It's interesting, though, because the Nuggets don't have any depth, and they literally don't have a backup point guard. And not that Reggie Jackson's like the Lord and Savior, but I mean, he had some okay run for them. So it's honestly a little surprising to me. Not to mention you had to attach picks to get rid of them.
I wonder if it was to try and make the money work for KCP. Like they wanted to be able to offer more money.
Could have been. Obviously, hindsight's an issue, but looking back at it now, it's like kind of weird when we are talking about how they have no backup point guard and they literally trade a guy who's already familiar with their system and looked decent enough, So
yeah. Gordon Hayward, not signed. Maybe he's a future Sixer. Taurean Prince, not signed, also maybe a future Sixer. Eric Gordon goes to the Sixers. I had the Bucks. Ryan had the Heat. We already kind of talked about this. I think this is a good pickup. Like again,
I like it too, especially on a vet min. If it wasn't a vet min, I might have hated it. Like if we dug into the cap for it. But on a vet man, I think it's an awesome deal. Spark plug that we need. So I'm with it.
Yep. Max Christie goes back 4 years, $8 million a year, right about $32 million. I got that right going back to the Lakers. Don't really have a lot to say. I'm hopeful we get some more minutes. I do think Max Christie could be good. Like it's $8 million a year. That's nothing in today's NBA.
Good tradable contract too for the Lakers.
Yeah, it's one of the very few young assets they have. Yeah, I think another B. I feel like I'm just throwing out Bs now left to right.
We're gonna run a B.
This
is an A. This next one's an A though.
I think this is an A too. This is a great idea from the Spurs. I had the Nuggets for Chris Paul. Ryan had the Thunder going for a reunion. He lands with the Spurs. They get a veteran point guard, a guy who can get Wemby the ball. It's a 1-year, $11 million deal. And I like this for both sides. Chris Paul gets a chance to try and prove himself, got a good bit of money, more than I think a lot of people thought he might get with some teams. And he just gets to play alongside Wemby, throwing the ball, probably average like nearly 10 assists per game because he's just feeding Wemby over and over.
Wemby's stats are going to jump, bro. I'm telling you.
Over under 24.5 points per game from Wemby this year.
Over.
Okay. I feel like that's a pretty good line. Someone asked me for that, or how many I thought Wemby was going to. Oh, he averaged 21.4 last year. That's a bad line. He's totally averaging more than 25. There's no way.
and keep in mind his point guard was Jeremy Sochan. So
yeah, you had Trey Jones at times, Sohan at times, like Devin Vassell trying to get. They just need somebody who could get him the ball, and also could be a mentor too for Stephon Castle, who they drafted.
Yep.
You know, his mentorship was great for the young Thunder when he was on the team in 2020. I like this pickup a lot. I think this is an A, if not an A+. I would give it an A+.
I agree. And I think we were really both under the impression he was going to go to the Lakers, but I do think the fact that the Spurs could offer him like a real contract, just wait him. And maybe he likes a challenge. Like he seemed to enjoy his time with the Thunder. Maybe he's trying to go, run that back.
Yeah, it's a chance for him to kind of try and pull that again where he rehabs some of his value. He's older. I don't think he's going to have the all-NBA season he had with the Thunder, but I do think Chris Paul could have a good year.
I agree.
Spencer Dinwiddie has not signed. Torrey Craig back to the Bulls. I don't feel like we need to talk about this one that much.
Now that we're kind of, obviously Jayshawn Tate went back, but we're looking at this list now. From Talen Horton-Tucker up, who is the most intriguing player?
Mo Wagner. I think there's still some teams out there that could use some. Come on, they could use some big man help. A bunch of teams out there. I like Mo. He can stretch the floor a little bit. Can play that backup center. Could play some 4 if you really need him to. And I think there are teams that kind of need that size out there. I feel like he probably still does go back to the Magic if I had to guess. Although they've got Wendell, they've got Goga. They brought him back, so maybe Mo is going somewhere else. Yeah, man. I think Mo's probably the most interesting guy. I'm gonna
throw out a prediction based on like just who's in front of us right now. From everyone from Spencer Dinwiddie, not including people that signed, to Talen Horton-Tucker, I think 1, if not 2 of those players are Bucks.
I could see a Joe Ingles reunion with the Bucks. Reggie Bullock feels like a Buck.
Yep, I can see Luke Kennard. I predicted that, but Luke Kennard or Alec Burks because they have no bench scoring. I mean, I think a lot of these potential bargain bin role players. I think 1 or 2 of them go to the Bucks.
I can see it. The Bucks got to sign somebody.
And also, I like real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but I like how I had obviously you picked Kyle Lowry first as a Sixer, so I didn't get to pick that. And then we were kind of on the train though that the Spurs were going to get a veteran point guard because I think didn't one of us predict Russ to go there? And then here we are predicting Lowry.
Yes, I had Spurs. Yeah.
Yeah,
we were on that
very high on the train of a veteran point guard going to the Spurs.
I just didn't expect it to be Chris Paul because I thought at this point in his career he would try and go somewhere he could compete. That was kind of my thought process.
Yeah,
but and at the bottom we had like some trade candidates: Brandon Ingram, Zach LaVine, Trae Young, Darius Garland, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Kuzma, Jared Allen. None of them have been dealt, so that's something to keep an eye on. DeJounte Murray did get traded. I predicted the Lakers. Ryan said he was going to stay with the Hawks. Ends up as a New Orleans Pelican. I don't know how I feel about this deal. I don't think they can be done. The fit is weird because he doesn't fix the issue where they don't really have great volume three-point shooting. They were a good percentage team last year, but didn't shoot many threes. They still need a big because Jonas is gone, and I don't think they want Yves Missi to be their starting center, the guy that they just drafted. He's not a floor spacer, really. I think an Ingram trade is still on the horizon to add a big or to add some other pieces. Then you flip somebody else for a big. They've got to do something. I still do think Brandon Ingram gets traded. Report was that they've had conversations with the Kings. I think that deal, it works if you do Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, and a first for Brandon Ingram or 2 firsts. So that would give them some good depth, but it still doesn't answer the big man issue. They're in a weird spot. And DeJounte, I don't think they gave up nothing for him. Like Dyson Daniels was good, a couple of first-round picks. I think the Hawks did fine getting returned. They could flip Larry Nance Jr. too. Yeah, it's a weird deal. I don't know how to feel about it. I do think the Pelicans probably got better, if I had to say.
I agree.
But I don't think it's like a massive difference maker unless they trade Ingram and kind of better fill out the roster. And then you could put like Trey Murphy, who's a knockdown volume 3-point shooter in that starting lineup. And then I think it makes more sense. I honestly wouldn't even be opposed to, sorry, real quick, putting CJ McCollum on the bench as a 6-man if you're going to keep him, and having DeJounte and Herb Jones as your backcourt with like Trey Murphy at the 3.
Two things. One, I get half a point here, at least in my head, because I did pick a Hawks guard to go to the Pelicans. So I wasn't.
He did. He predicted Trae Young to go there. He did.
But I know Ingram's kind of been in the hot seat to get traded, but the fact that they acquired a guard, I wonder why CJ is not really being thrown around in rumors. I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
That also has felt a little bit strange. I wouldn't be surprised if CJ gets
trade
moved.
him for a center.
I'm just trying to think of where he could get, like, what is the center that's out there in the market? I saw someone in one of my chats for either my free agency stream or my BR stream mentioned like Ingram for Jared Allen because the Pelicans need a big, and then the Cavs, if they want to move Mobley to the 5, get another scorer.
Like,
but the only thing that worries me is that Allen isn't a floor spacer, and it feels like you really want that with Zion on the team.
That makes sense.
But Allen's one of those guys that I think can make the most out of that situation with his ability to roll to the basket, the athleticism, the passing, as well as a big man is big. So I don't know. I think there is still ways to make it work, but it is a weird fit over there right now in New Orleans. They're like kind of a hodgepodge team. There's no way they're done.
Before we transition to our last topic, I do want to throw out there that it's kind of interesting that I feel like Karl Anthony Towns would have been in a lot more of these rumors if it wasn't for the Minnesota Timberwolves' really good run at the end of the year. Because I really do feel like we'd be talking about him for a lot of these teams. But
yeah, I mean, he would have been a guy that could have made sense for like the Pelicans if you want to go that route.
Like an Ingram for Towns type of trade. I mean, that would have been something that would make sense. But, we're going on to our last topic. We're going on like an hour and 15. So I kind of put together here like all the extensions that have been signed so far, all the players that have been traded, some other deals for guys that, weren't on that initial list, which no offense to some of them, but I was kind of shocked that like I found that list online and I was like, how does like DeLon Wright not like on that list? Like he's a pretty solid role player. I'm surprised he wasn't on that list. And then on the bottom, we kind of had a list of teams that have either really not done anything or they've only really brought back like one or two of their own players, or just teams that are in like weird positions. Like for example, the Warriors, they brought Melton in, but they're still kind of in a weird spot. So to kind of wrap it up, Connor, I want you to pick one of those teams on the bottom that we haven't talked about a ton and kind of give me your spiel about them.
Yeah, so the teams we have on the bottom, if you're on audio, are the Heat, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Nuggets, the Cavs, the Jazz, the Grizzlies, Rockets, and Timberwolves. Those are some teams that haven't really done much, whether it's because they can't, they just have not done anything. The Heat, I think, are the team I have to talk about. It's I feel bad for Matt. I'm sure he's out there listening to this. Matt, we're sorry. It's so bad, man. I don't know what they're doing. A report came out today from, I think it was Florida Sport Buzz or whatever that account is, that publication. But apparently the Heat still see their roster is good enough to contend if they can stay healthy. And I just don't know how they don't see what everybody else sees. Like the Sixers added Paul George. The Celtics are like a juggernaut. Even like the Bucks, who weren't great this past season, they still got Dame. They still have Giannis.
The Knicks got OG and Mikal.
They have OG and Mikal Bridges. In what world is your team right now that is probably going to lose Caleb Martin and Haywood Highsmith going to compete with those squads? It's not going to happen with Jimmy getting up there in age. I just don't understand how they're, again, seemingly going to stay pat with this team.
Pat.
Yeah, I was going to say stay pat for Pat Riley. Like, I like Kel'el Ware as their draft pick. I think he's a fun big to add to that team, but he's not going to help you contend with those squads. A starting lineup out there of, it would be like Tyler Hero. You've got Jaime Jaquez in there, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and whoever you put at the 2, like whatever route you want to go with that starting 5. Maybe you put Kevin Love in there.
Their depth's kind of shot too, honestly.
Let's look at the Heat's depth chart real quick. I think there's somebody that I'm completely blanking on that's in that depth chart.
Oh, Rozier.
Rozier. I continue to forget that Rozier's on that team. Like Rozier, yeah, he's a cool addition, but like, is Rozier, Hero, Butler, Jovic, Bam, Jaquez,
Josh Richardson, and Kevin Love?
Like, there's no way that team is competing in the Eastern Conference. It's not happening.
Yeah.
If Jimmy Butler is healthy, you lose to the Celtics in maybe 6 games or still 5.
I mean, they're a playoff team, I think, but they're just not in the same echelon.
They're for sure a playoff team, but it's like, man, I don't blame Jimmy Butler for potentially wanting to leave here soon because they've done nothing to help him. You see, like, you look at some of the other top stars around the league, like the Sixers went out there and paid all this money for Paul George to try and help out Embiid. They've traded for James Harden. Like, it hasn't worked, but they've tried. The Celtics brought in Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday to help Tatum and Brown. They traded away Marcus Smart. Bucks went out there, and even if it doesn't work out, at least they took a swing for it.
Yep.
You've got to do something, and they're just not, man. I'm not a Heat fan. It's frustrating because I feel like Jimmy Butler deserves better for the way he's dragged this team to 2 finals that they probably shouldn't have been in, but because he overperformed and the team did, they've made it there. They've found a way to do so. And people, I'm sure, are going to comment on this, or whenever I make the Heat, like, I'm mad at them video during the offseason, like I always do. They're going to say, wait till this year, like, it feels like there's Stockholm syndrome with some of these Heat fans. Like, you are being held captive by Pat Riley, who's been taking a nap since 6 p.m. Eastern yesterday as we're recording this. Ever since free agency started, that man has been sleeping. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Even like the Bucks had a DeLon Wright, like even they did something. You brought back Kevin Love, sure, but the needle is not moved. The needle's not moved.
No. Even though the Bucks also drafted a guy who averaged like 1 point in Australia when there was a bunch of NBA ready talent available. But
yeah, weird pick there as well.
Pull back up the list. Let's see. I want to see if there's anyone else I want to touch on before we wrapped up.
Yeah.
I feel like Minnesota is kind of tough. I really feel like them trading up in the draft was like their way of like attacking the offseason, because unless they somehow traded Towns and, spread the wealth a little bit, which, like we were talking about earlier, maybe if we had this conversation last year at this time, we would have said that was a very plausible situation. But after the run they made, I think they're going to try to keep a pretty similar squad.
Yeah,
so them trading up for Rob Dillingham, and who else did they draft in the 20? It was
Terry Shannon.
Yep, him. I like that pick too. Really established, scoring, college player. So I think that's kind of their way. The Grizzlies are interesting because we were all kind of questionable on the Zach Edey pick. Everyone kind of thought it was a little bit of a reach, even though center was a team need. You have Ja back, so you finally get to, see how this core kind of, comes together, and they haven't really done anything. So I think they're going to make a move. I don't know what they're going to do. Utah's interesting because they have all this cap space and haven't done anything.
Yeah,
and now
reports are that they might be looking to trade Lowry, so we'll see.
They're literally are going to have to do something because they have, what do they have, like $40 million in cap space?
They've got a good bit. They're one of the teams that right now is firmly in middle of the pack, like, what is your direction type team. Like, they've got to choose a way to go. They're not going to be one of the worst teams. They're going to keep getting like this 9th, 10th, 8th pick, especially with how bad the East is going to be over there. You could be like the 15th seed in the Western Conference, like the 14th seed, and you might still be like the 7th. Like, there may be 5 teams worse than you over in the Eastern Conference. That's how bad I think it could be. So yeah, man, the Jazz are kind of in a weird spot. Is there any other team?
I think the last team. I think we've touched on everyone else on this list, but maybe Cleveland.
That's true.
We talked about them a little bit when we were talking about maybe a Jared Allen for Brandon Ingram swap, but the Cavs haven't done anything, and their roster is pretty talented. But there was, all this talk about maybe Donovan Mitchell doesn't want to be there. Maybe him and Garland can't coexist. Maybe they split up Allen and Mobley, the 2 big men, to try to find some more scoring options. Get some more depth on the team because. On paper, the Cavs look good, but they just couldn't stay healthy. And even when they were together, just didn't seem like they had, a lot going on together. So,
yeah, I think everything's probably on hold for them until Mitchell signs that extension. Like, it sounds like he's probably going to. And once that happens, does Darius Garland ask out? Like, it's rumored he might. Mm-hmm. Do you consider trading Jared Allen? What is your upgrade? You've got Isaac Okoro as a restricted free agent. I think until Mitchell signs that extension, if he's going to do that, they're just kind of in limbo. So, yeah, it's kind of weird spot. They got Kenny Atkinson as their head coach. I like that signing. I think that's a fine pickup for them.
JB to the Pistons is kind of weird after they give Monty that record contract. Then the Cavs fire JB for not being able to get him over the hump, and then
back-to-back years of hiring someone who literally just got fired is kind of hilarious.
It's very interesting.
I do think JB Bickerstaff is a fine coach. I think he's going to help them, and like he did a good job with a lot of young players over there for Cleveland. He could at least be like a good transitional coach before maybe you hire someone later to take you over the hump. I guess they didn't get over the hump, but what like the Sixers tried to do with like a Brett Brown situation, like what the Warriors did with Mark Jackson being there, and then it was Steve Kerr came in. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a fine hiring. It's nothing too crazy. Is there anybody else we can talk about in this list here that I don't think there's that much to go into anymore?
No. I was going to say shout out to all the guys in the extension list that got the bag. Tatum now the highest paid player in the NBA. Cade Cunningham, like we kind of expected it, but just to see Cade Cunningham making, what was it, $50 million a year?
It's 5 years, 226 mil, so it's like around 40 and some change. Which some people are freaking out about that too. The Pistons have no talent. They've got he's like the one established good player on that team.
Exactly.
They were always going to pay him. And if he turns into the guy that it seems like he can become, especially with more talent around him, it's a bargain. Like that's perfectly fine. Yeah, Tatum and White get their extensions. Maxey got his money, which we knew was coming, but shout out to him. Siakam and Monk go back to their teams. That was expected too. Like I talked about earlier, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins go back, and Scotty Barnes also gets a bag out of that same draft class. Yeah, that's kind of it. I feel like we were on here already for the Caruso Giddey deal. I don't think there's anything else to really get into, so I guess we can wrap. But yeah, appreciate you tuning into the episode. Let us know what you thought of this idea, this concept. I'm trying to think of what our next episode will be. I guess it's just kind of a waiting game right now. We'll see if any big news happens.
Yeah,
maybe
if like in like 3 or 4 days, there's like an hour worth of stuff to talk about. You know, if a couple big trades go down, or maybe DeRozan goes and there's a big sign and trade, and then like one of those guys we had in the bottom of the list gets dealt. Something happens with the Cavs and Darius Garland. Like I feel like it's going to depend on what happens. But I would say
we could always do like a way too early like predictions or power rankings type thing. Like those things are always fun to do. I know you said you wanted to do ranking players at some point this offseason.
We had to do our positional rankings because last year we had great content when you said Kobe White was the worst guard in the league. And
I never said that.
You wanted him in F tier.
We were doing a point guard tier list.
You wanted him in F, and there you had like no one else in F tier, so that puts him as the worst guard in the league.
That's just not true. That's just not true. It was only starting guards.
Worst starting guard in the league.
Kobe White. I did not say that exact sentence. Anyways. We can, if you let us know what you want to see for off-season content now that free agency is kind of wrapping up. We'll talk a little bit about Summer League when that happens. I might be out there potentially as well. So I can, phone in from Summer League, potentially kind of talk about what it looks like out at Vegas. Yeah, that's all we got for right now. Leave a like and subscribe again. Like I said at the beginning, if you enjoyed, a lot of support from y'all in the last episode. Really appreciated that. Check it out on audio platforms. If you're over there, make sure to go ahead and rate 5 stars, download whatever you do over there. I honestly don't know for sure. And yeah, if you made it to the end of the video, comment. I am completely blanking on something.
Comment Baby Yoda because he's hanging out in the background.
Yeah, Ryan's got the Baby Yoda hanging out in the background. So comment that down below in the comments if you made it to the end, and let us know you're one of the real ones. That's all we got. I appreciate you tuning in as always. We appreciate y'all tuning in as always. We will see y'all later. Take care. Peace.